Thank you everyone for being here. It is a real pleasure to be in front of so many security experts. Actually, this is the first time I am in B-sides in Tirana. However, I'm in some other security conferences in Tirana and the region. So the topic that I will be discussing today deals with a specific, which is more in risk management domain, and the topic is about managing cybersecurity challenges from third-party service providers in the financial industry. Before we dive into the topic, briefly a little bit about myself. My name is Valdet Shehu. I currently serve as in the Information Security Office in Velibë Banka in Pristina in Kosovo, which is one of the largest banks in Kosovo and also part of a larger banking group in the Western Balkans. Previously, I also had experience in in information security in two other banks in Kosovo, in managerial and senior level positions. Other than that, I have a master's degree in computer science and telecommunications from University of Pristina. I was also recently awarded the prestigious Chevening Cybersecurity Fellowship, which is hosted by United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense. I will talk about it later. And after coming back, I also won a grant about implementing a specific program which we named it CyberPulse, and it deals with implementing an advanced threat intelligence and situational awareness platform in few specific government agencies. Because other than this, I also have few security-related certifications and over 20 years of experience in IT and cybersecurity combined. You can find me on social media, on Twitter, X, and LinkedIn with the same handle, Valdet. So I would like to continue on this one. So firstly, this topic was part of a broader project. As I mentioned, that was for the Chevening program. And this is the Western Balkan Cybersecurity Fellowship. And this is a project that is fully funded by the FCDO, or the Foreign Office of United Kingdom's government. It is delivered at the Defence Academy of the UK's Ministry of Defence, and it is hosted by the prestigious Cranfield University. This program is more geared toward professionals that are interested in cyber policy and cybersecurity, and it includes candidates from the 6 Western Balkan countries. I would encourage anyone to learn more about this program, because it is a fantastic experience to allow professionals to get networked with high-level decision makers and professionals from the United Kingdoms, from the industry, from the academia, and from the government cycles. So this is a very interesting project, and I would encourage anyone interested to look to it and to apply. So about the specific project, as part of a final deliverable during this program, we had to perform research, and the research paper had few objectives. I've listed the main ones here. The first one was to investigate and to manage the cybersecurity challenges related to third-party service providers. But on top of that, after the research, the objective was to propose an effective third-party risk management strategy that would emphasize more specifically the role of regulatory bodies and regulatory frameworks which are based on the best practices. The methodology of the research was pretty standard. It involved quantitative analysis, literature review, and few specific surveys with involved stakeholders of this topic. So first, before I dive into the project, let me provide a brief overview of the financial industry in Kosovo, and more specifically on the banking sector. So there are currently 12 banks in Kosovo, and 9 of them are foreign-owned, which hold over 85% of the capital of the banking sector. However, since our independence in 2008, the banking sector is seen as the key driver in funding the economic growth and innovation in the Kosovo market. So, which are some of the services that are related to security that the banking industry and the financial sector uses? I've highlighted the main ones, and obviously the key ones that are more important to the industry are online and mobile banking, telecommunication services, payment processing, card personalization, and others. And last but not least, the cybersecurity services, which hold a specific and very important interest to the banking industry. And while using these services, which are the key targeted benefits of the financial industry or the banking sectors? The benefits that the banking sector aims by using the third-party service providers are the operational resilience, market advantage, legacy reduction, and cost effectiveness. By reducing the reliance on legacy systems, the banking sector tries to gain advantage over this issue, innovation, and of course to stay compliant with specific regulations. So now I will focus on which are the main cybersecurity risks that the Kosovo financial industry faces currently. I've listed the main ones, and obviously the data breach is one of the key concerns in the financial sector or banking industry in Kosovo. And related to data breaches, I've only listed the year 2020, while the security professionals from the region are probably aware of a significant incident that occurred in 2020 when a prominent bank in Kosovo fell victim to the doppelpayment criminal gang, where most of its data were encrypted by ransomware, and then the data was exfiltrated and published in the dark web underground markets. This when you couple this with the situation when there was a complete lockdown due to the pandemic, this highlighted the significance that such an incident, although initially thought to be minimal in effect, it caused huge reputational damage to that institution because there was a mini panic caused among the population, because on the parallel with the situation of being locked down, people were also fearing that they would lose their money. So this highlights the risks that data breaches pose to the financial industry. Other than that, there are other types of risks like unauthorized access, malware attacks. Service disruptions is also a significant risk to the banking sector, because most of the modern services are hosted by third-party service providers, or some of the key services are provided by service providers. So whenever there's an operational issue with those providers, this causes service disruption, and then this translates to operational costs and losses for the sector. And few other risks are mentioned there as well. So during the project, there was, as I mentioned before, a survey. So just to quickly relate to the topic of cybersecurity risk, one of the questions provided during the survey was if the financial industry have any knowledge of a cybersecurity incident related to service providers in the last 12 months. And the answers here are pretty evident of the perception or about the knowledge of cybersecurity incident as from the perspective of financial industry, because this is quite evident. And it tells us that it needs its deserved attention. Related to this, I also would like to present few trends from the more renowned reports that are published. One of them is from the Verizon Data Breach Investigation Reports. This is from the time when the research was done in 2023. And this highlights the point of entry or the attack vector in data breaches, where we can see that the attack vector from the partner or the service or the software updates features prominently in the top 2 positions. On a similar report on the share of cybersecurity risk per type of malware from the IBM Cost of Data Breach report in 2023, we also see that the attack on the business partner and the software supply chain also feature prominently. So this underscores the importance of the criticality that service providers pose on the financial industry and all the risks that are implicated by using such services. So what is the current role of regulatory frameworks in the banking sector or financial industry of Kosovo? First one, there are 2 aspects of this. The first one, there is a regulation of information technology for the banks, which was published in 2020 by Central Bank of Kosovo. And it is quite a basic regulation which lists the basic requirements for the management of service providers. It doesn't go too much on the details. And it also lists the definition of minimum standards that service providers need to have in order to manage their risks. It also puts emphasis on the contractual obligations about the business relationships with the service providers in terms of information security policies, which are the oversight measures that CBK, the Central Bank of Kosovo, uses to apply this regulation. They are through the security audits by the Central Bank. They also need access to internal and external security audit reports, and also they do have provisions where they recommend penetration testing of critical services. I need to highlight the critical services that are offered by third parties in terms of digital services that the banks use. Another aspect of regulatory frameworks is the recently adopted law on cybersecurity in Kosovo. And this law was adopted in 2023. And this is more detailed, and it highlights the obligation of service providers in the event of cyber incident. These clauses mandate that service providers need to notify the relevant authorities in cases when there are confirmed cybersecurity incidents. Notification requirements need to be done to the Cybersecurity Agency of Kosovo. Which are the key enforcement measures? I'm going through these briefly. In case you don't do the requirements that are listed under the provisions of the law, there are impositions of financial fines for non-compliance with cybersecurity measures. And the objective is to ensure that the security and resilience of digital services in Kosovo is improved. To also establish the obligations. And the significant aspect on this is that there is also a provision that compliance with future regulations by the Cybersecurity Agency of Kosovo needs to be well established. Other relevant legislation that pertain to the cybersecurity services of financial industry are the other 2, the law on protection of personal data as well as the law on critical infrastructure. So now we go into the kind of the most important part of the research, which was to analyze the trends based on the surveys that were performed with stakeholders from financial industry and service providers of the banking sector. So I will just show the charts and the questions, and then to give some of my insight. One of the initial things was to ask the responses about the cybersecurity challenges faced by financial industry when working with service providers, and this is important because it highlights that insufficient cybersecurity measures ranked higher than data breaches and non-compliance issues. This is indicative that there is also not enough clarity in the financial industry, because non-compliance issues should be more prevalent, because non-compliance includes the other concerns that are ranked higher. Another one is the perception on the level of risk by service providers as seen by financial industry. And in regards to this, the question posed was, what is the current level of risk posed by service providers for the financial industry? And half of them responded that the level of risk is high, while another 41% highlighted that it is a medium, which underscored the importance of the perception of how the financial industry sees the risk posed from service providers. The next one is about the confidence of the financial industry entities for the cybersecurity measures of their service providers. And we can see here that only like 9% of them believe that the cybersecurity measures of their providers are sufficient enough, while the 68% of them believe that they have not enough information, therefore they replied with neutral. And then another one is the perception of effectiveness of cybersecurity measures by service providers. And the question was about how effective are the current cybersecurity risk assessments when onboarding partnering with third-party service providers. And even they admitted through these through these answers, we can understand that even they admitted that there is not enough being done in this aspect, because only 12% of them believe that the onboarding processes are effective, while the rest believe that they are somewhat effective, and the not so good measures are also prominently highlighted. The next one is about the transparency, which I believe is quite important when dealing with third-party service providers. And when we ask the question of how satisfied are the financial industry with the transparency provided by the service providers about the various issues, only 9% of them responded that they are happy enough. They are confident of the transparency communicated by service providers, while the majority, 59% of them, replied that they are neutral to it. And looking through all of these answers, we get all kinds of perceptions and thoughts about what could be done to improve such a situation. So the next question deals with if the financial industry feels that there is a need for a standard that would regulate the cybersecurity measures for third-party service providers. And the answer couldn't be more clearer, in that it highlights that the financial industry strongly believes that there should be some clarity, there should be some framework or regulation that would strictly regulate the business relationships as well as the security measures that service providers offer to the financial industry. So, going next, now I will also briefly go through the details of the data analysis from the survey filled by the service providers. One of the questions was that how does your company ensure the protection of sensitive information? And here I think we can gather some interesting data, in that the service providers believe that data encryption and access controls are important security measures to ensure the security of their data. But further down, we see that the compliance with data protection standards only has 15% weight in their answers. And this indicates that even the service providers are not fully aware that if you comply with specific data protection standards, this encompasses the other measures that are ranked higher in this survey, which are data protection and access controls. And this indicates that while they believe that, for example, access controls are good enough to maintain the data security, unless you are compliant with some specific standards or requirements, you can never know if they are effective, because they may be ad hoc access controls, and unless you are obliged to comply with compliance, then it can leave a lot of room for speculation. The next one was the readiness of service providers to respond to a cybersecurity incident. They did claim that they are ready, with 56% of them claiming that they have the capacities to respond, and that they have a documented incident response plan for cybersecurity breaches. However, the final question, among many others, is about the readiness of the service providers to pay cybersecurity insurance that specifically covers the cybersecurity risks. And the answer here is pretty indicative of the readiness of the service providers to pay for insurance coverage. And we see that only 16% of them replied that they do have insurance coverage to cover for potential cybersecurity risk. And this indicates a big area of potential improvement, because having a cybersecurity insurance plan would help to offset the costs that would be involved when you have a cyber incident, when data of your client or your own data is breached. So to kind of provide an overview of the conclusions from the survey's data, non-compliance is a key risk, obviously. Non-compliance is a key risk from service providers, because this includes insufficient cybersecurity measures and data breaches. Services with highest risk on the financial industry are online and mobile banking, payment processing, and infrastructure management. This is not to say that these services are the most vulnerable, but these are the more important, and any potential cybersecurity incident in these services would provide with higher risk and higher exposure to the financial industry. Perception of risk is very high due to the lack of tested incident response plans from the service providers, as well as the lack of transparency in incident disclosure from them towards the banking sector. Another significant fact is that service providers are not willing to invest in cyber insurance, and this is a significant concern, because as I said earlier, cybersecurity insurance coverage for service providers as well as financial industry would provide a very welcome layer of cost reduction in terms of cybersecurity incident. Service providers are not fully keen on security assessments from independent parties, and as a member of the financial industry, I can attest to that, because even though we insist on having contractual obligations for the service providers to have regular security audits like penetration testing, security attestations or similar, there are problems which have potential for improvement. And finally, there is a pressing need for regulatory clarity, given the low confidence on cybersecurity of service providers and the related experiences from regional incidents. So, after analyzing all this, the survey data, providing the overview of the regulatory landscape, and analyzing briefly what are the services and the risks, the objective of the research was to come up with a proposal, and the strategy for here comes a strategy for third-party risk management framework, which is kind of in two-directional. The proposal lists two possible ways to implement this. One of them is if the TPRM or third-party risk management framework would be adopted by by Central Bank of Kosovo, and in this aspect there is a proposed regulation or standards. And briefly, I will list the key important points. This framework would provide a clear cybersecurity objectives for financial institutions and third-party service providers. The guidelines, we wouldn't need to invent something new. I mean, we would need to use the best practices. So the guidelines should include the inclusion of best practices, recommended security controls and standards, as well as compliance requirements. And that would aid the financial sector this framework would aid the financial sector in aligning to the proposed framework. Mandatory compliance should also feature prominently on the framework, in that financial institutions and providers must demonstrate compliance with these specific regulations in key business processes to ensure data security and confidence in their business integrity in the market. What are the methods that this framework would be forced? It would be done through regular audits, self-assessment, or third-party certifications. It would ensure cybersecurity is integral to the business operations and security governance. And then on the other side, the proposal also proposes that this framework should be ideally adopted by the Cybersecurity Agency of Kosovo. And the proposal is as follows. When establishing the third-party risk management framework, this would identify a structured approach for, firstly, identifying, assessing, and monitoring all the third-party risks for the critical national infrastructure that Cybersecurity Agency would be accountable for, responsible to protect. It would also provide applicable mandatory compliance across financial sector as well as the other sectors of CNI, critical national infrastructure. And again, we wouldn't need to be doing our own, but instead to use the best practices. And in this regard, there's the recently adopted DORA EU regulation, more specifically Chapter 5, which has the provisions about strengthening IT security in the EU financial sector, and this may be used as a very good model for similar regulation in the financial sector or other sectors of critical national infrastructure in Kosovo. More specifically, I've listed the 5 key pillars that are in this chapter, which would provide a very good baseline to have the third-party risk management framework. Other possible best practices also include the NIST cybersecurity supply chain risk management, this one provides guidance on risk management and supply chains or third parties on all levels of every organization. Suggested or recommended are also the ISO 27001 standard, which emphasizes that risk management in supplier relationships, as well as the ENISA threat landscape, which informs the development of strategies depending and compared to the trends of supply chain attacks. Also, NCSC supply chain risk guidelines. This is a very practical approach that offers steps for assessing the cybersecurity in supply chains for organizations of all sizes, from small businesses all the way to the government agencies. Impact of this proposal, that if it would be adopted and if it would be applied by the Cybersecurity Agency of Kosovo, the impact is that it would provide a more effective management of cybersecurity challenges in Kosovo's financial industry. And also it would be a significant step for enhancing the resilience of Kosovo's financial sector, but also other sectors of critical national infrastructure. So, after going through all this, what is the future and the challenges regarding the proposal? Firstly, the key one, the big wall, is that Cybersecurity Agency of Kosovo is yet to be established. Although the law on cybersecurity was adopted on February 2023, one of the first actions that was supposed to happen after the adoption of the law was to establish the Cybersecurity Agency. And here we are, 1 year and a half later, and the Cybersecurity Agency is still not there. Although there have been some steps like bylaws and strategies adopted, the Cybersecurity Agency, with its leadership or the specialist cybersecurity analyst, has not yet been established. And then the other dilemma is, if once the Cybersecurity Agency is established, if there will be plans to adopt a third-party risk management framework. And then that is another challenge that needs to be seen on the future to see how this will move along. And then suggestions for future case studies about similar topics. I've listed few of them, such as providing research data about specific risks and implications like financial risk, regulatory, operational, and reputational implications upon the adoption of TPRM framework. It would also improve monitoring on the TPRM adoption, as well as another study would challenge on how to utilize the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence or other emerging technologies, and how such a framework should need to be adapted for addressing those technologies. And finally, by providing a panoramic view of the Defense Academy campus where the program was done, I thank you for your attention, and now I'm ready for any questions.